This episode is sponsored by Manta Sleep. Manta Sleep makes sleep masks and sleep accessories that help you get the energy to create your best life. Head to the link in the description to get 10% off. As might be expected in an oceanic island, the mammals are both few in number and of small size. The collections brought back by the officers of HMS Flying Fish and by Mr. Lister included 2 species of rat, a large fruit bat, and a shrew. A small insectivorous bat was seen, but no specimens were obtained. The conditions of life are apparently extremely favorable, food being always abundant. The consequence of this is that all the species of mammals are extremely common, and the individuals are always exceedingly fat. Christmas Island is an island of endlings. Islands, especially ones with long histories of isolation, tend to be hotspots for species that are found nowhere else on Earth, which also makes them uniquely vulnerable to extinction when that isolation ends. Christmas Island is no exception. Of its 5 native mammals mentioned in the intro, only one is left, the large fruit bat, or flying fox. The other 4 have gone extinct, along with several reptile species. And the weird thing is, the birds of Christmas Island are the cause, or at least, their poop is. Though perhaps it is unfair to blame the birds for the fate of the other wildlife on Christmas Island, when really, it's a story about how we humans decide what we value, the products of animals or the animals themselves. Many stories about Christmas Island start with its naming by Captain William Miners after he sighted it on Christmas Day, 1643. This is a very human way to frame its history, like it just appeared out of the Indian Ocean in the early 1600s when it first began showing up on maps of English and Dutch navigators. But of course, its history goes back much further, to when it actually first appeared out of the ocean. Christmas Island is a seamount, a mountain that rises from the seafloor, and in this case, that mountain was also a volcano. It stretches 5,000 meters up from the floor of the ocean and likely surfaced around 60 million years ago, making up the core of the island and allowing for the formation of a ring of reefs. It began to sink back beneath the waves around 40 million years later, becoming covered in coral, which eventually turned into thick deposits of limestone. Then, around 5 million years ago, it rose up again thanks to some flexing of tectonic plates, which pushed that limestone above the surface of the ocean and transformed it into an island around which a new coral atoll could grow. And sometime after that, animals got there. Somehow. Now, Christmas Island is about 1,500 kilometers from Western Australia and less than 500 kilometers from Jakarta, Indonesia. It's perhaps less mysterious how bats made their way there, but that's a pretty long way to go for a lizard or a rat, and the island had several endemic species of both that were not found anywhere else on the planet. They probably got there by floating on mats of vegetation or uprooted trees carried by the Indonesian through flow, a major ocean current that runs from the western Pacific into the eastern Indian Ocean. And of course, birds have found the island a number of times since it re-emerged from the ocean. There's something like 6 endemic species that make their home on Christmas Island and many more that breed there. And with 80,000 birds nesting annually, that comes with a lot of poop, which is where things started to go wrong for the landlocked inhabitants of the island. See, when bird guano is rained on or pounded by ocean surf, nitrogen and phosphate compounds are washed out of the poop. If this happens on a surface like limestone, which is high in calcium carbonate, chemical reactions turn this combination into hardened phosphate deposits, which are highly sought after for producing fertilizer. And all the ecological turmoil on Christmas Island is rooted in the discovery of these deposits of phosphate in the 1880s, a discovery that turned a small island in the Indian Ocean into something valuable, a resource to be exploited. Christmas Island was annexed by Britain in 1888, then leased to the owners of the Christmas Island Phosphate Company for 99 years. Mining began in 1899 with the first major shipment going out in 1900. And it continued until March of 1942, when Japanese soldiers invaded the island during World War II, seeking control over its phosphate and its strategic location. After the war, mining resumed, but the next decades brought about some changes, like Christmas Island became an Australian territory in 1958, and environmental concerns in the 1970s about endemic seabird nesting sites spurred the creation of Christmas Island National Park in 1980. More of the island and its surrounding waters were added to the protected area over the next 9 years, perhaps marking a turning point in what resources were considered valuable. Meanwhile, in 1987, dwindling quantities of high-quality phosphate and low prices led the Australian government to close the mines. The phosphate itself, it seemed, had lost its value, at least for the moment. The mines were reopened in 1990 with the current lease set to run out in 2034. And while the human history of Christmas Island has largely been a story of the value of its geological resources, its biological ones have been slipping through our fingers the entire time. In early September of 1900, the same year the first major shipment of phosphate left the island, the SS Hindustan arrived offloading cargo and taking on 3,300 tons of phosphate. Part of that cargo included bales of hay, and with them came black rats. Now, Christmas Island already had 2 species of native rat, McClear's rat and the bulldog rat. McClear's rat was described as being arboreal and nocturnal, and extremely common, occurring in literal swarms. The bulldog rat was also nocturnal but lived on the ground and dug burrows. It was less common than McClear's rat, but it was said to have a thick layer of fat on its back, suggesting that the 2 rats weren't competing for food. By October of 1904, though, neither native rat could be found on the island. Only black rats were left. It seems that they had carried with them a cargo of their own, fleas infected with a parasite to which the native rats had no immunity. We will likely never know the endlings of McClear's rat and the bulldog rat, but what remains of these 2 species are 9 museum specimens whose value now lies in their ability to shed light on the cause of their extinction. And just 4 years later, in 1908, a 3rd native mammal was also thought to be gone for good, the Christmas Island shrew. Like McClear's rat, it had been extremely common when it was first described, and the loss of 2 rats may have been behind its rapid decline, but not its extinction. Because the shrew wasn't actually extinct by 1908, it had just become very rare. It wasn't seen again until 1958, when 2 individuals were caught during the clearance of more rainforest for mining. They were released, and decades passed before any more turned up. This time, it was December of 1984, with biologists capturing a single lone female, and not realizing her value at the time. A possible mate for her was found in March of 1985, but he died soon after being caught. The death of the female, the probable endling, sometime in 1985 or 1986, marked the final sighting of this species. It is possible that they, like the native rats, were also decimated by the parasite carried by the fleas of the black rat. But another hypothesis suggests it was actually the loss of the native rats that caused their decline. By allowing another iconic Christmas Island species to take over, the Christmas Island red crab. If these crabs were preyed upon by the rats, then without that balancing force, their population could increase, and these crabs consume leaf litter, which was both a habitat for the shrews and sheltered their arthropod prey. Without enough leaf litter, the shrews would be pushed into habitats they were less suited to, dwindling in number until the accidental introduction of the common wolf snake in the 1980s finished them off. Either way, the Christmas Island shrew was officially declared extinct in October of 2025 after decades of fruitless surveys. And it was not the only native mammal to be declared extinct in the 2000s. The endling of the smaller of the 2 bats, the Christmas Island Pipistrelle, was last heard on August 26, 2009, and the species was officially listed as extinct in 2016. Like the rats and the shrew, it was abundant and widespread when mining began, and it seemed to be doing well up until about 1994, when its numbers began to drop. But unlike its fellow mammals, we can't point to a single cause. It seems to have been a perfect storm of invasive wolf snakes, giant centipedes, and yellow crazy ants, plus a cyclone in 1988 destroying roosts, and ongoing habitat loss from mining. Now only the larger bat, the Christmas Island flying fox, remains. It's kind of an endling itself, the last surviving endemic mammal on the island. And it too is threatened by the phosphate mines, or at least their dust. The phosphate deposits on the island are naturally enriched with the heavy metal cadmium, and mining them creates potentially toxic dust. Elevated levels of cadmium have been found on the fur of flying foxes and in their urine. And while it's not clear yet whether this has contributed to the decline in their population since the 1980s, it is a concern, along with the constellation of invasive species and extreme weather events that took out the Pipistrelle. And it's an ongoing one, as phosphates are still being extracted from the island at least until 2034. As long as this continues, there will continue to be a tension in the perceived value of Christmas Island. Environmental concerns about the mines began in the 1970s, yet half of the endemic mammal extinctions happened after the creation of the national park. It seeks to brand itself as the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean, attracting ecotourists, and yet the mines are still open. It remains to be seen what will happen after they close. Will the flying fox population have stopped declining, or will we have met their endling by then? And if none are left, will ecotourists instead only get to witness the thing that made Christmas Island valuable in the first place? Its birds. The many tragic stories of species we've driven into extinction that we've covered so far on Endlings might have left you wondering how we humans manage to sleep at night. Well, for many of us, it's thanks to today's sponsor, Manta Sleep. Manta Sleep is fueled by their mission to enable better lives through better sleep and regular naps. They make the world's best sleep masks and functional sleep accessories like this Manta Pro sleep mask with its premium feel and adjustable fit. Great sleep is the non-negotiable foundation you need to create your best life. And however this whole Anthropocene thing pans out, at least I know that I'll be able to nap through a little bit of it with my Manta Sleep Pro mask. Legitimately, it is so comfortable I feel like I could sleep my way through the next mass extinction event. Check out Manta Sleep and make sure to use code BizarreBeasts or click the link in our description for 10% off your order, and then take a nap.